Everybody, thanks for joining us for today's roundtable. My name is Chris David, Campus and Community Engagement Librarian at Northwestern University Libraries. I'm also a member of the ULS Academic Outreach Committee that hosts these relatively quarterly, sometimes by every 2 monthly roundtables related to outreach in academic libraries. Here today is Anna. She's going to be backup facilitating for me and handling any technical issues that people have, and jumping in should we need, or we've got as we noticed, we have a full house today, so that's pretty great. I'd like everybody to kind of go down the list. I'm going to call you out from my left to right because I'm not really sure how the screens work for all of you if everybody shows up in the exact same order. To just introduce yourself and let us know what your title is. So Abigail, why don't you get started?
Hi, my name is Abby Morgan, and I'm a social sciences librarian at Miami University.
Allison.
I'm Allison Shepard. I work at the University of Tennessee Libraries, where I'm an online learning librarian.
Elise.
Hi there. My name is actually Kirsten. Sorry, this is under my pen name, unfortunately.
That would explain. I was kind of confused when you showed up, and I was like, I don't have an Elise, and I'm not really sure how she got the link, but all right, she's here.
Yes, sorry. My name is actually Kirsten Penninger. I'm the assistant to the library for Otterbein University.
Emily.
Hi, my name is Emily Hardesty. I'm an instructional services librarian from Lycoming College in Pennsylvania.
Eric and friend.
My name is Eric Jennings, and I am the head of user services at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. And friend shall just be named friend from here on out. No,
Hans Kischel. I don't have a job title right now. It's in flux, but I'm involved with the gaming collection and also club on campus. So
a number of us have been in that influx title situation, I'm sure. Gary.
Hello, I'm Gary Marks. I'm the reference and outreach librarian at William Patterson University in New Jersey.
Hope.
Hi, my name is Hope Johnson. I am the outreach and reference librarian at Winthrop University in South Carolina.
And Jennifer.
Hi, I am Jen Whitaker, and I am the instruction and outreach librarian at SUNY Canton in Northern New York.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. So to kick off our discussion on games and gaming, what are a couple gaming events that you have in your library? Are they online games, the video games, they could be board games? What are just a few that you're doing?
Oh, I'm sorry. I've unmuted my microphone, so I guess that was this that I should be talking right now. I just also wanted to show everyone, this is my co-chair, Ginny, and she will be joining us too. So at Miami, we primarily do board games as our outreach. We have a series called Library Game Nights where we host about 4 or 5 events a semester, and we usually just do board games here, not video games.
I can go. Our game collection has been around since about 2011, but we haven't really used it much. I'm new in this role, and I'm the game liaison, so I've implemented game nights. For our freshman orientation this year, we had kind of an open house where we put out one of the areas were board games for people to be able to play and card games. We do have a very robust video game collection. We haven't done much with that yet, but I'm hoping that in our second semester here, we'll be able to incorporate more. And then during International Games Week this year, we will be hosting a series of teach and plays where we have a game each night where people can come for about anytime during 2 hours and learn how to play a new game.
What's at your institution a gaming liaison role? Do you have like a gaming program that you liaison to, or are you literally like community liaison to, like, hey, we have games?
Kind of both. We have, because we have a game collection, we have someone who's in charge of curating it, and that's my job. But additionally, we have a gamers guild on campus who do a variety of gaming events, and my job is to assist them in making sure that the collection reflects their needs and that the library provides information and resources to them, and that they're aware of those information and resources.
Got it.
So much like Kirsten, I believe was your name, right? Much like Kirsten, we have a beginning of the year event at UW Eau Claire, and we've been running that for about 9 years now. And it's a variety of things. We have life-size games, we have video games, we have mini golf, we have laser tag. So we have a variety of things that we do on that first night of class to encourage students to check out the library and to become familiar with the space and the people who work at the library. And so that's been very popular. We've averaged the last few years over 1,500 students in our 4-hour period of time that we're open. And then Hans can talk about some of the other stuff that we have here at McIntyre Library.
Yeah, so we've had a game collection since about 2011, I think. I'm not sure exactly when, but since then we have organized a gamers guild on campus that holds basically game days every week on Sundays. They come into the library and play board games for the afternoon. I always try to encourage them to hold some kind of event related to International Game Day and a couple others. This year, we're going to try to partner with Public Library, who's going to be having some events going on during International Game Week, so that we can sort of not overlap or work at odds with each other. So.
I think that means I'm raising my hand. We've generally done board games, and such things like Twister, that kind of stuff, but we are actually really interested in looking more into video games. We have an esports management degree started here and like an esports team, so we think that's a good direction to go into, but don't need to learn a little more about it.
Okay, I guess I'll go next. I'm Allison at the University of Tennessee. Our situation's a little bit different because we're just getting started with gaming. I'll be hosting International Games Week later this year at our main library for students to come in and play some different board games and teach each other how to play them. I'm hoping to get some students in we have a student gaming club, so I'm hoping to get them involved in teaching people how to play games. We're also developing a makerspace that we hope to open in the next 2 years. And we're hoping to include a gaming space and an esports space in that as well.
Hi. So at my library, we actually have never really done any game events. We don't have games. We don't have video games. But I want to try to get into it because earlier this year, I did a 3-day-long Dungeons and Dragons event, and the theater department at my university was putting on a play called She Kills Monsters, which is kind of loosely based on Dungeons and Dragons, and we partnered with them to have some events in the library. So I had someone from the history department come and give a talk about how medieval culture influences Dungeons and Dragons and a lot of the current games and even movies like Lord of the Rings. And there was one of the English instructors gave a presentation on all of the literature influences for the guys that created Dungeons and Dragons. And we had an impromptu game that happened, and the students really loved it, and it was great to partner with these other departments. So since we got such a big positive feedback about it, I wanted to see what else we could do in the gaming world to try and attract students. Dungeons & Dragons was big when I was in high school, and I was really shocked that it was popular again. But it went over really well, so I want to see what else we can kind of start incorporating.
At my library, we just recently established a tabletop game collection, and we've only held a couple of events, including open gaming nights and a couple of learn how to play nights as well. So I'm looking into partnering with our new board game group on campus. So we'll see what partnerships, how that will develop. Yeah.
So at Grandview, we are just now starting to think about this gaming opportunity as well. We just recently got an esports program, and we are starting a game design program at Grandview. One thing that our head of esports is very concerned about is that the people who go into esports tend to be kind of solitary. So she thinks having like a tabletop board game night at the library would give them an opportunity to like sit down with other people and talk to other people and just give them a better overall student experience. It's not even so much about the games as much as just making those students feel more at home. So it looks like we just lost Chris, our facilitator. Can y'all hear me okay? Excellent. So I'm Anna. I'm the backup facilitator. So I guess I'm now taking power over this now that Chris has gone away. Let me get my questions here. We can continue on, and then he will be back soon, I'm sure.
I can go real quick if you want, because I didn't talk about what we do here.
Please do.
That's Gary. So we don't really have a gaming collection, nor a budget to do so. So I'm interested to see how some people have acquired budgets for these type of materials for both consoles and games themselves for electronic. And we have a number of places on campus that do these already in the residence halls and recreational services as well. So we've been concentrating more on kind of escape room games and AR type scavenger hunt type games, so that we don't really, those are things that we can do in-house without a fixed budget to purchase things. So I'm definitely interested in some of the board game nights and board game things that people have done, but I don't see us having a budget anytime soon for consoles or gaming or anything like that yet.
I did want to throw in too, because I neglected to mention, one of my coworkers developed a breakout game for use with their first year studies program. And I've been involved with development of one for a different campus library as well. So those are things we do with classes that come to the library, but they definitely do still have a learning about library materials focus.
So one of the ways at UW-Eau Claire that we've gotten some money, well, a couple different ways that we've gotten money. One is through our Center for International Education, and as opportunities for students who are not English language native speakers, that they've purchased a variety of games to help those students familiarize themselves with each other when they first come to campus, but also to work on their English language skills. And so they've given us money to buy games to add to the collection for that. And we also have worked with the Center for International and Global Education, and they've given us money for backgammon sets because it's popular in Turkey. We're one of the faculty goes and does some research, and that is an opportunity for us to get more money into the collection.
Yeah, with regards to finding money for that, you know, here at Otterbein, we have a very, very small budget for that we just kind of set aside each year, and I have to request it every year from our general library fund. But the thing that's worked really well for me is, as you can see in the chat, asking game publishers for donations. We offer them sponsorship rights basically to our collection. We say, hey, if you donate, we'll put up a sign that says that you donated these. It'll be inside the box itself. I've also had a lot of luck going to my friendly local gaming store and saying, hey, I'm a partner in your, I work at the university, you're one of our community members. Would you be willing to donate any games to our collection? We also sometimes work with them and bring them in to do some training and teaching so that they get some nice little feedback, because then people go to their stores and purchase their own games.
I have a question for those of you who are getting donations. Are we talking about board games? Are we talking about role-playing games or video games? Like what kind of games are being donated? Like what kind of publishers are you reaching out to?
I can speak on that. So I've been reaching out to tabletop game publishers such as I think Mayday Games, Rio Grande, I think Fantasy Flight, so, and even smaller publishers. So all I did was I emailed them and I said what we were going to use the games for. And a lot of times they emailed me back right away saying, oh yeah, we're going to send you some games. What's your address? And I think we received somewhere around 25 tabletop games that way, which doubled our collection in size. Anything in return. So it was pretty great.
I also had success working with Catalyst Game Labs. They donated the entire 5th edition of Shadowrun, which is a role-playing game, to us. I also went to the Origins Game Fair here. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. So that's a really big gaming convention, and I just went around to every stall and said, "Hi, I work for a library. Would you consider donating?" Which is how I also got a lot of things for our collection.
So we can talk about our funding situation. So for our series of game nights each semester, we have a very, very limited budget from the libraries that, like most of you guys, we have to request every single time. But at the same time, last year, there was a big push on campus from student life organizations, student life offices, departments, whatever you want to call them, to have more outlets, more alternatives to the nightlife, to the binge drinking, all that fun stuff. Mm-hmm. And one of those initiatives was to provide funding for weekend events, large scale funding. So we apply every year, every semester, for one of our events to get this additional funding. It's it was $2,000, but recently they've upped it to $4,000 if we extend it past like 10 or 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So we're able to kind of squirrel away some of the library's money and kind of separate it out for some of those other the non-large funding events, and have the big, gigantic blowout events for, say, International Games Week. That's what we are planning on using our giant stash of money for this time. So.
I have a similar situation. We have a student engagement fund on campus, and so we use anything that engages the students to fund that, so we can save library funds for other things.
And who do you work with for that then?
It's the dean above us, I believe.
Okay. So I'm curious how other people at your institutions, we do a lot of game nights. Do you incorporate games and gaming into other types of outreach activities?
So one of the things that we do here at Eau Claire, there's a math faculty who teaches in the honors program and has been teaching a honors course on game design and analysis, and he uses just tabletop board games. And I've been helping out with that and go and give guest lectures on prototyping, because I've actually done game design myself for tabletop board games. And since that has become popular, I actually now teach a course on game design and analysis of simulations. And through that outreach, we've gotten more interest from other areas on campus, like the Center for International Education and some of our other groups. So it's been kind of a slow thing, but it's basically any chance we get. I did have a business professor who found out that I was interested in gaming and wanted to know if there was any game that could help with, it was an international business communications course. And we actually developed an assignment where the students would have to come into the library and they would play the game Pandemic. And it was about learning how to cooperate and communicate and through leadership, basically. So that was a really great project. Unfortunately, the professor left, but any chance we get to sort of promote games use in education, we're doing it.
I can say here at Otterbein, we're trying to do more to connect some of those information literacy things to gaming, critical thinking skills, cooperation, communication, so that people understand that while games are absolutely tons of fun, they actually have a great deal of connection to real world skills that employers in particular are looking for, so that they can begin to incorporate them more thoroughly into their classrooms. So we're doing some of that as well. We're working on making a broader awareness.
And do you do that at like a class specific setting, or are you doing it in other ways or broader ways?
I can say, so I maintain our games LibGuide, and so every month I have a new video game and a tabletop game and role-playing game that I highlight from our collection, listing the sort of skills that employers might be looking for that it connects to. And then we also, whenever we get a new game into our collection after it's finished being cataloged and everything, I send it to the liaisons, the librarian liaisons for all the different departments and say, hey, did you know that this game connects to the things that your professors may be teaching? Be sure to share it out with your professors.
That's a great idea.
Outside of playing the breakout game with classes for first year studies, we had a common read for Station 11 where all of the incoming students read the same book and then they have discussions. One of my coworkers actually developed a breakout game where we actually built a room in the library based on the themes of the book, and invited students in to come to get to know people in the library and to break out of that space based on the themes. Some other things that we've been working on that are kind of in progress. I'm part of a community of scholars for gamings and simulations. And we've been having discussions with faculty on eventually building our gaming collection and doing that in ways that will support the things that they're teaching. Kind of taking the idea that someone was speaking on earlier of bringing students into the library to play a game that relates to something they're learning in class. So still a work in progress, but it sounds like a lot of people are doing similar things.
I'm curious, besides Kristen, not Elise, and Eric and Friend, are there other institutions here that have gaming and game design programs at your institutions that you're working with?
We share even a building with our game design program, but we actually don't seem to be able to get much inroads with them in terms of collaboration. It's just a bit, I don't know, they do their thing and we kind of do our thing. And it's a long-term goal of ours, maybe a short-term goal even, but it just hasn't quite clicked yet. So that's a thing that we're trying to think about and brainstorm.
And I think part of the problem for us is that the liaison librarian to that department has virtually no interest in games. Like he's not on the committee, on our committee. He's not really involved past trying to, teach these classes or teach library instruction and all that fun stuff. So there's a little bit of a communication mishap, barrier for us in that regard.
We have a brand new game design, literally this year, new game design program by Grandview. And we haven't done a lot of collaboration with them yet, but something we really want to do is something to do with ethics in gaming. I don't know a lot about gaming, but I've followed that aspect of it a little bit. So whether we can do a book display or just create some kind of guide to the issues surrounding that issue, since it is, prevalent not only in gaming, but kind of is leached into a lot of other aspects of our life. So that's one thing we really want to develop in the future.
We have a game design and development bachelor's degree here too, and I have been collaborating with them some, but haven't had anything planned quite yet. But we're talking.
It's got to start somewhere, right? What about other campus partners? I know we've kind of alluded on some, and while I was flickering in and out with my connection, which I apologize for, are there other campus partners that you reach out to kind of collaborate on events and programming around games? Or student groups?
Go ahead, Elise.
Sorry. We have a campus activity board, which is specifically about doing programming for students. And so we work with them quite a bit to make sure they can use our collection at any time. And then we're trying to do more faculty and staff games as well, because we want to make sure that our faculty and in particular our staff realize that the library is there for them as well. And so we've started doing during breaks, faculty and staff focused gaming as well, which we work with the HR department about so that they can do campus-wide blasts and encourage social activities. And then we have a governance structure on campus where we have assemblies for faculty and staff. And so we have made a point of bringing games to faculty and staff assembly meetings so that we have some networking possibilities there, as well as, stress relief.
Go ahead. Okay. So we have just recently been able to collaborate with two of our student groups on campus, the Strategy Gaming Club and the Society of Physics Students. And they do the Extra Life fundraising event, which raises money for children's hospitals. They drew attention to it. I didn't know anything about it until they mentioned it. We've also had success. So they're going to join us for our International Games Day event, and we've also had success partnering with Residence Life, especially. That's been a huge boon for getting students to become more engaged with our gaming programming.
Yeah, we're able to use our connection with this residence hall director. He's able to pass all of the information, actually crack the whip and get his RAs on board. Yes. And getting their students to actually bring all of their students, their residents into the libraries for our events. It's greatly boosted our numbers, which affects our library funding. We can justify, hey, we have this many people and all that fun stuff.
Can I ask, what's your FTE?
Let's see, our student enrollment is about almost 20,000, mostly undergrads, but we do have some master's and doctoral students.
And do you see that same support across all res halls, or is it a particular res hall?
No,
this is maybe also a question of how you're organized.
I'm sorry.
I would say this is also maybe a question of how your residential halls are organized too, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, we advertise as broadly as we can, but we really just focus on the 2 residence halls that he is the director of. And that's really been enough people that like, otherwise it would be a little bit overwhelming probably. So we haven't quite gotten to the point that we've decided like, this is great, now let's target all the residence halls.
Yeah, this is the first year that we've been able to kind of leverage this connection. And so right now we're kind of still trying to explore the scalability and trying to figure out how we might address scaling the program, scaling the events up if we do decide to go further.
That's awesome.
I'll just echo the same point. Working with Residence Life has been fantastic for us too. We've done a murder mystery game for some of our residence hall students, and they have a great time. And it's nice too because it gets them to get to know the people that live in the hall with them since they come over as a group. And I think it's a different opportunity for them to kind of build more of a community. Whereas with other events, they may or they may not attend. They get really excited to come and get free food and play a game together though.
Show of hands, how many of us have circulating collections for games? Most of us. Okay, so how do you handle circulating for your collections? Both for the rest of us that maybe and are curious how they handle it, or those of us that may be interested in doing it, knowing the challenges.
We'll go. So we have sort of a split collection almost. We put stuff that's could be applicable for classrooms into our instructional materials center. And that sort of goes with just a bunch of curriculum materials. And that's available to check out just like anything else that you would have in the library. But then and it's really due to funding issues. The stuff that we've purchased with things that the games that we've been able to purchase with funding from the campus engagement office technically can't really go into the library's collection. And so that stuff we just keep in the library, but it doesn't circulate because we're not really allowed to have it circulate.
Yeah, they place some restrictions on how we use materials, how we use what we, the stuff we spend their money on. Mm-hmm. So we can't add it to the collection, but we can keep it in a little closet that we just pull out for all of our game nights. Mm-hmm. That we really can't use for anything else. So there's some duplication between what we have in our collection and our circulating collection and what we have available for the game nights. But there's also some extra stuff in the game nights collection that we don't duplicate in the circulating collection because it's just not relevant to the curriculum. Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a crazy situation.
So for ours, our board games, we circulate all of them, and anybody can check them out. And the big thing that we've done, it's mostly myself actually, is checking the games back in, making sure that there's an inventory of the parts. It has basically fallen to me because I'm one with the most experience in gaming.
The biggest game nerd.
I'm the biggest game nerd here at the university or the library for sure. And so what I've been doing though is because of the game course that I teach and the math professor teach, we've purchased through the honors department, gotten some money to purchase like spare parts. And what I've been doing is as games get used and are falling apart, I will scavenge all those parts out of them. And what I've done is we've done replacements on some of the ones that get used the most, but I keep all of those parts. And then as games come in that are missing things, I rebuild them. And so I've basically been recycling old games so that we can keep the games that we are circulating out in there and we don't have to replace them as often. We still have to do some replacement, but this has been working so far. Now, if the collection grows a lot bigger, maybe that will make my job title change to the gaming librarian. So we'll see.
The other thing I'd say is that Hans used to be doing a lot of the checking of the pieces and parts himself, and we have offloaded that from him and have that being done at the circulation desk now, and they are inventorying all of them when they come in rather than wasting his valuable time. So our students can do that while they're sitting at the desk waiting for somebody to ask something, for something to check out or whatever. So.
And where are you keeping them? Like, do you keep them behind circulation, or do you keep them, are they out on shelves?
Yep, out on the shelf.
All together?
Yep, they're all out on the shelf. A lot of times, I mean, really we're not checking them as they go out. And so because we have a very active use of the game collection, really when a game comes back in that's missing something, we'll send an email to the patron and ask if they can find it. If they don't, we're not charging them for the game. Usually I will rebuild it. We have not charged anyone yet. The only time that we've lost a whole game was somebody came into the library, took everything out of the Small World box and must have put it in their backpack and walked out. That's the only one that we've lost completely. So it's, to some extent, it's more work to go through and try to check all the parts as you check it out and then check it as it comes back in. That's why I basically just maintain this collection of bits and bobs and just rebuild them as I need. And then if we have to, yes, we'll purchase another one.
Yeah, we circulate our board games for 5 days at a time, and they're just up in a cupboard upstairs. And like I was seeing in the chat, we don't really have huge issues with losing pieces either.
At my library, we have a small collection of about 50 tabletop games. They're on a separate shelf on the first floor of the library, and the staff were very flexible about deciding if we're going to charge fines or how often we're going to count pieces. We don't count pieces after every check-in, but that's because our campus's FTE is about 1,200. So these games aren't being circulated as often as maybe at a university. But yeah, we've definitely had problems where a student wasn't turning in the game after the checkout time of 3 days. And so eventually we had to start enforcing some more rules, but it works for our library to be a little flexible on that.
We may have touched on this a little earlier when I was blinking out again, because I heard people talking about collection development. How do you at your institution handle advocating for games as a collection, gaming as an event? Do you feel pushback from your administration in the value of this? Or do you feel pushback from your colleagues in the value of this? And how do you handle that?
I just ignore it. Any pushback, I ignore it. We don't really get pushback from our administration. There has been some pushback from some faculty members, but like I said, I ignore it. The library administration has really liked seeing how much having the game collection brings people into the library. One of the reasons why the Center for International Education donated games to us was that during the summer and during breaks, a lot of the international students are here on campus. Most of the other students are gone, and those students were looking for things to do, and so having the game collection, they come in here and play games all the time, and the administrators love that, seeing them in here in the library doing things and bonding and doing things together. So we really have not had much pushback at all.
We live in a very rural area, so I think our administration is happy for any type of engagement with the students. Anything that gives them something to do besides, going down to maybe the local bar, I think is really well thought of.
Sorry. Go ahead.
We have had some pushback since we started hosting game nights for International Games Day several years ago. And there was always some level of pushback, because our understanding, we've only been here for about a year. There was always some level of pushback from the administration as far as getting enough funding. And then some just didn't see the value in what we were doing. Like they were trying to get us to tie it in some way back to the mission of the library, which honestly we don't actually have a mission statement at this point in time. So that's kind of a moot point. I don't know why it was brought up in the first place, but whatever. Since our departments got shuffled around, we had a gigantic library-wide reorganization. And so the Games Committee fell under a different supervisor. And since then, we haven't really experienced much pushback because our supervisor is a really, really good advocate for what we're doing. He's really supportive of our efforts. And I think maybe he's been the blockade that we need so we don't actually hear any of the pushback. But yeah, since then we haven't really experienced that.
Well, yeah, and then the independent funding sources has been a huge thing, because if the library isn't putting any financial, I can't think of the word, but yeah, they don't have a financial stake in it necessarily, so they're not as concerned. So that's helped a lot.
I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to get any funding for buying games if we want to start a collection. So I will have to get creative in building our collection. But I do know that anything that is going to bring students to the library, our library is sort of on the edge of campus. So students, it's hard to get students to come all the way over there, even though it's maybe like a 5-minute walk. But anything that will bring them to the library, and any opportunity that I can use to make connections around campus, I think is my bosses would be delighted about, even if it was something about gaming. And but I don't think I'm going to get money for it. So I like the suggestions about getting the donations. That's very helpful. And someone mentioned earlier about stress relief. And at the end of every fall and spring semester, we do at the library a week-long, during finals week, we have free coffee and hot chocolate and tea and Legos and coloring pages and different things, puzzles and things like that. So I can definitely see board games especially fitting right in with something like that for students.
So often, especially when you're looking at online games and video gaming, gaming is viewed as a very straight white male dominated, sometimes very aggressive industry. And do you experience that in your institutions, in your games? And do you find yourself having to handle making all students feel welcome in participation? No is an acceptable response as well, and would be encouraging as well.
Yes, I would say that our game nights right now are largely dominated by our white students. But I have started sending personal invitations to the different diversity groups on campus to personally invite them to any of our gaming nights, so that they feel like there's someone who really wants them there, so that they feel a little more welcome, perhaps.
One issue we have with our esports program, which I'm familiar with because our esports program has a mandatory study table in the library, is that it's fairly new. So there's only about 30 students in it. Of those 30 students, only 2 are female. The rest are all male. And I think that's might be fairly typical of esports programs at this time. Having spoken to the head of the esports program, it seems to be our 2 female students are very STEM oriented. Like they're using this for a resume power later, and because they like it, but mostly because it's part of their career path. Whereas it seems like our male esports people are more like, I like games. I don't like athletic stuff. I'll go do esports. So I think this question really ties into a broader question about women being in STEM, and that's certainly something we're always trying to promote at the library with our liaison positions with STEM. So I don't know if that ties into other things that people are experiencing with gaming or their relationship to STEM.
So our campus is not super diverse to begin with, unfortunately. We do have a really large, relatively speaking, large international student population, mostly Chinese students. We get a handful of them at every event, but for the most part, I would say that our attendance is largely representative of the our campus community.
Yeah.
We haven't encountered any issues or any of our attendees being unwelcome to any others. So thankfully, that hasn't really been an issue for us. Although, you know, the diversity as a whole would be nice on our campus, and might be nice to have some more representation there. But it's pretty good so far, I'd say.
All right. I want to give just a little bit of time if there are things that people wanted to address or ask the group that we kind of haven't touched on, to make sure that people kind of had an opportunity to say, hey, what are you doing about this? Is there anything that we didn't kind of touch on that you want to address? Oh, I see you raise your hand.
I can't remember who mentioned it, but someone was talking about connecting the gaming to information literacy. And I was wondering, I think what she talked about most was information literacy principles, communication and things like that go into gaming. But I was wondering if there's anything, if anybody has a game or ideas for gaming that they could bring into the classroom during an information literacy presentation, because I think that's pretty intriguing. And we all know how difficult it is to keep students' attention during these sessions. So I'd be curious to know if anyone, can bring gaming into the IL classroom.
Jenny's going to speak to this.
So last fall, one of the residence director that we mentioned before that we were working pretty closely with, he approached one of our other librarians because he was interested in creating an information literacy game for one of his first year classes. All of our students go through, all of our first years go through this one class, and there's one class meeting that's specifically dedicated to information literacy. So what he wanted to do, he's really interested in games. He wanted our help to build a game that he could play for 1 hour or however long it was with his first year students. And what we ended up doing was having a breakout box. So breakout.edu is a company. It's pretty similar to, it's like a reverse escape room. So instead of trying to break out of a room, you're trying to break into a box. We created sort of a mystery kind of thing where there was this weird epidemic on campus that's happening with a professor missing. And you had to solve all the clues, building citations, verifying information, evaluating information to solve all the different puzzles that we set up, and eventually break into the box and find out, oh no, the campus is infested with a weird strain of scurvy. So we had all these lemon candies that they could then have once they finished it. It was an interesting process. It was a long process, really, really complicated. Because a lot of the ideas that we had when we actually started testing them, trying to figure out, okay, is this a good puzzle? They were either way too easy or way too hard. So trying to calibrate and get it to be playable by a group of first years was interesting. It ended up working out well, but it was a complicated process. It was a difficult process.
We've found there's a couple of card games kind of along the lines of Cards Against Humanity called Fake News and Alternative Facts. We've used a couple of those in some of our classroom settings just to start the conversation with the students about how to recognize when a source is academic versus opinion versus et cetera, et cetera. So we found those as a great way to get the conversation started with our students before we start going into more of a deep dive. And much like you guys, we've also started working on gamifying some of our programs about learning about how to use library resources. So we've only, like I said, our game program is actually fairly new. It's only about 4 or 5 months up and running. So we're still working on that, but we do have a mystery around the library resources scheduled for this October.
Anything else that anybody wants to ask or bring up or say, hey, we do this and it's awesome?
I was wondering how people use video games. Like, what is your setup? Do you use like a large screen? Do you use individual monitors? Do you know what I mean?
So at UW Eau Claire, we call them pods, where there's a system. It's called Crestron, and you can screencast up to 4 screens, laptops, onto one large, like 50-inch TV screen. And so we have those in the library already, and so we just hook up our HDMI cables to those when we have our big game night at the beginning of the year. And for older game systems, you might have to buy some adapters to plug them into the televisions, but that's how we've done. And some of them are personal game systems, like I brought in a few of my old game systems, but then also we've had some purchased for that event specifically. And actually just this morning, there's a group on campus that is, we talked about trying to keep kids out of the bars and that sort of stuff. I believe you actually said that. And so there's a place on campus where they're looking to add games, video games specifically. And so we have the Rock Band in a box that we sent with them to have for students this weekend to play so that they stay on campus and stay safe. And they'll do that somewhere else, not in the library.
We do it similarly in our events. We have large either plasma or LCD screens that are on wheels that we use for our digital signage, and we just appropriate all of them for our events and just hook up right to those.
Is there a problem with like noise when you have a big group of people playing video games together, or even a tabletop role-playing games, and things like that can get kind of loud? So how do you deal with the noise factor?
We have a quiet floor designated at our library, so everybody knows that they can go there. Otherwise, we just do a lot of social media blasts, letting people know that this is upcoming. And so if you need a perfectly quiet environment, maybe we're not your place for the next 2 hours.
Yeah, similarly, when we do our events, they are like our big game event. We take over the entire floor. And so if you're there, it's going to be all loud in all games and all of that. The only other time we really do a game event, especially like focus on video games, is during exam relief, when we just set up some sort of a console for people to sit down and play. And again, it's in a public space where there's a lot of traffic and there's going to be noise anyway. We turn the sound down on the system so that you're not actually hearing the video game sound effects, but obviously you'll hear the people, but we've never had an issue. We've never had a complaint.
Recently, we have been hosting all of our stuff after hours, so the library is closed, and so we haven't really had any issues because anyone who's there is there to play games. So that's been kind of fun too, to have them later at night when they're typically not open.
It's also easier to get head counts that way because you know that everyone in the building is there playing games.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us for today's discussion. I feel like we had a really good group and got a lot of really good ideas to share. So I hope you all got something out of it. I know I did. Look for a quick email from us just to get some feedback on how today's session went. We're always trying to improve and make sure that we're doing the best we can to offer programming that is interesting to all of you. Like I said earlier, we do this relatively quarterly or so. So also keep an eye out for our next round. And hopefully we'll see you in the future. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks.